why do certain maladies seem to be fixed by magic and others not?
I feel like it is such a weird question because I feel like Harry spends a crazy amount of time in the hospital wing, right? Yeah. So we've seen things that take a long time, like regrowing bones, which I guess makes sense. Some of the deep, like, curses and things like that. And Dumbledore's hand, how that, like, couldn't be fixed. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it seems like, when you think about the magical world, that healthcare would be a lot easier. You know, you wave your wand to say a spell and...
Yeah. But there seems to be some skill involved in it, too, because there's a couple times where they're like, well, I'll just do this, but we'll let Madame Pomfrey, like, do the real thing. And it wasn't, like, stupid people, you know, or bad wizards, you know what I mean? So it's like, clearly there's some element of, like, you have a gift in that, right?
Yeah, just like, because some of medicine is dealing with potions and stuff, and some were clearly good at that and some not.
Yeah.
I don't know, what other of the classes that they took, like, what would you have to be good at to show an aptitude? Herbology?
Yeah, or it seems like it, right? Because... for whatever reason, Neville's really good at it.
They always mention a lot of classes that they don't actually go into.
Yeah. Or Earthmancy.
I don't know what Earthmancy is.
Ringman's.
History of Muggles. No, there's History of Magic and then there's...
Muggle Studies.
Yeah.
Which I think, like, it's kind of funny to think about, but it's like, that would be a very... you'd need to know that in any job you're doing, you need to have some sense of what's going on there, I guess. Yeah. But can you imagine them kind of like, what kind of things would they need to know about Muggles?
Everything.
But they wouldn't necessarily, necessarily need to know Muggle history, right? But they'd kind of have some sense of
how Muggles function in the world.
Like what exactly is the function of a rubber duck?
There is none, it's just cute.
I think, I should check this before I say anything, but I feel like when Dumbledore appears, when Harry has the Resurrection Stone, that he has a broken nose, or maybe when he appears to him in that, like, kind of, at King's Cross or whatever. Like, Harry says, like, there he is, it's Dumbledore again, him with his broken nose, and it's like, why would he have a broken nose in the afterlife? I don't know.
Maybe he just didn't have, like, whenever it was broken, because I don't remember that part, because they must tell you at some point.
I think Grindelwald, like...
I don't think it was Grindelwald, I think it was his brother...
over the coffin, punches him or something.
Maybe he keeps it... he might keep it... Maybe he keeps it as, like, a reminder.
Yeah.
But maybe if something's been broken for too long, they're like, well, we'll have to re-break it anyways.
I think that's true, but I think it's an interesting point when he reappears to Harry. I think maybe that whole situation, it was because after Harry had kind of given up thinking he had given his life, with the Horcrux. And everything there was kind of as he...
That's true. It says it's your party or whatever.
His reality.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe it's like that's the only way he ever knew Dumbledore too, and that's how they were... I don't know, but that's one way to think of it.
Yeah, that would make sense, because I feel like the people that appear with the Resurrection Stone are kind of in their, like, perfected bodies. But it would make sense that Dumbledore... It's not the same thing, that he's kind of... It's in his head, but it's real or whatever.
I think it's interesting, though, too, as we were talking about the rubber duckies and babies. Do you think childbirth is as painful for witches?
Ooh.
We'll never really know.
Yeah, it could go one of two ways.
Only one of two?
Yes. There's only two outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Worse or better. Yeah. Either they can't because it's kind of like a sacred thing. Mm-hmm. So, like, magic just happens to not work. in that situation. Or, yes, they make it better.
Like, it's like how people have epidurals. Maybe they have, like, their own kind of...
You have your blood plan.
Magic
or no magic. Potions or no potions.
This is a specifically made Ollivander wand that will go in the spinal column.
Because it's obvious they can still very much feel pain, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you see that throughout the books, but I don't know. I mean, again, it doesn't really matter, but it's just something I was curious about.
Mm-hmm.
The like science and the function of magic are never really discussed in Harry Potter. And it's a really big, like, it's the whole reason the books are believable, is that there must be some scientific something that makes magic work.
Well, it's just interesting because I feel like in different parts of the book they talk about there are certain things, though, with magic that you can't do, right? I thought there was something related to food.
The 5 rules of magic.
Yeah, so they do address that very briefly. I couldn't name a single one for you right now, but I think...
You can't make food.
Yeah, food. Yeah, I thought that was one of them. So it is interesting, like, what is and isn't allowed, because that explains, like, why there still would be other... So there could be poverty among witches and wizards, you know, and things like that some of those things still exist. I don't think we really see that in the books, but I mean, you need to have some sort of rules like that, I think, to explain certain circumstances, but...
Yeah, she never addresses, like, the study of magic itself. Like, where does the magic come from?
It seems like that would be a class.
Yeah. Like, what gives the wizard... Like, is a wizard a different species? I feel like we've brought this up before. Like, are they a different species? Do they have the same kind of DNA sequences? Like, what is the magical part? Like, what makes a muggle turn into a wizard? Like, what has happened there?
And does a squib have some of both, if it's different DNA? You could ask your mom. No, I'm just...
Yeah. Yeah, and I asked my mom if she would listen to the podcast, and she was like, and I was like, so no, you're not gonna listen to it.
She heard there were bad Dobby voices, so she
She
just
doesn't
could
know
not.
She doesn't know what a Dobby
She could
is.
not get
Probably
behind.
learned from your dad.
She like doesn't have she doesn't have like the mental capacity to care about Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Because she's just got so much going on. Yeah.
It's just like fantasy and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter is nowhere near on her scope.
So how did your dad get along? Or are they just like not? That's one element of their relationship that isn't. Because doesn't he like Star Wars and all that?
Yeah, he likes.
Who doesn't?
I think he loves like storytelling,
But like,
so like good storytelling.
yeah, but he's not necessarily like a fantasy person.
If it's good fantasy, he likes fantasy.
Yeah.
You know what I think? I think
He's not gonna read Twilight.
maybe
You just said it sucks. Who would?
does.
maybe Reese's dad could send us some examples of things that he likes. Do you?
Well, I know you're not on Twitter, so go ahead and send us an email. The email is thunderwudgies@gmail.com. And I know you will actually send us an email because I just said that.
Sweet.
He comments
Thank
on my
you.
YouTube sometimes.
Oh.
And we'll read it out loud.
I ran into him recently. He's like, oh, I listen to your podcast. Like, what do you think? He's like,
It's a podcast.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, thank you for hanging in there anyway.
Right.
I like that people call it interesting.
We were going for unique. I mean, who wants to do a podcast that everybody else is doing or has been done? This is
I guarantee
interesting
you,
and unique.
no podcast out there is called Thunderwudgies.
And
Because the Twitter handle was available.
So, do we also want to tie back
the meaning of life. We need to... I don't think we've done that, actually, the past episode or two.
I could bring up the meaning of life. I thought of a related thing.
Take it away. Take it away, Ern.
I
now I want to watch the movies.
I've heard recently, in a few different places, people talking about how much our society is just pain avoidant and how many problems that causes. And I feel like it relates to this idea of health in Harry Potter and stuff, because a lot of it has to do with, like, avoiding pain or minimizing pain or the length of time that you experience pain or whatever, right? And it isn't that when you're thinking about, like, ooh, why would I want to be living in that world? It's because you think, like, well, so I could wave my wand and make my problems go away. Even though, obviously, they have problems, and to some degree that's not true. But I think, like, the question of, does childbirth hurt, or, whatever, right? It's kind of because, like, well, wouldn't it be nice to, like, be in a place where I could just not experience these things?
Mm-hmm. And that feeling that it's, if you take the pain away, it's all going to be, then all the experiences will just be perfect.
Yeah, life will be great, and, whatever, so.
Which I feel like it gets a kind of numb quality, though, too, if you never have. I didn't mean to cut you off.
They clearly still have the mental health ward at St. Mungo's.
And I was going to say, just even some of the characters, the way they treat each other, you can tell there's obviously still that, like, at times, just anxiousness, like, like, that struggle inside. And, I mean, if you were Harry Potter, wouldn't you have a lot of issues, I feel like, knowing that when you were a baby, someone wanted to kill you, and...
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I think that's interesting, and we kind of... I agree when I hear Mungo's, I kind of think, like... what stays with me is the long bottoms and kind of their mental issues there. Mm-hmm. So it's clear that they haven't quite figured that out either. I wonder if they have, like, wizard counseling.
Trying to think of who would the wizard counselor be. Rita Skeeter.
Oh gosh.
That'd be horrible.
Have a seat and tell Rita all your problems.
That's just one of the staff members we never met. The school counselor.
But, like, think about it. They're off. It's like a boarding school or college or whatever. They're not with their parents, and they're having to learn all these new skills. And in the later books, there's a bunch of, crazy, terrible stuff going on in the world. You'd hope there was a counselor.
Yeah, I hope Jenny saw a counselor. I hope Jenny was seeing somebody. Yeah.
That's a great point too. I never even thought of that. That like,
there's no way she can be, like, actually function without seeing one.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot to deal with. And I feel like that was never truly addressed in the books. Like, how much Ginny actually experienced being essentially possessed by Voldemort.
She just woke up and was kind of fine.
And she was trying to kill people.
Yeah. And she
like,
killed chickens and stuff.
And I feel like reconciling that with yourself, like, I mean, you got a little of it in the book where she was kind of like, oh my gosh, what did I do? But, I mean, that was something that you'd really have to struggle with. And, they got to have a really good counselor.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, not that wouldn't be super traumatic or whatever.
It's Trelawney.
But, oh gosh, she needs a counselor.
I wouldn't be surprised if she was the counselor.
Well, I mean, that's kind of usual level of school counselors. But I find it interesting how, like, Ginny being possessed is really significant, but yet it seems like everyone forgets, and then she gets offended, and then has to be like, hello, remember me? I was possessed by Lord Voldemort, you know? And, like, but I feel like that's really true. Like, I like that happens, because isn't it true, right? Like, you've been through crap, and, like,
but it's not everybody
else forgets, or it doesn't even matter. And then even for me, I mean, like, I've had some hard times in my life, and then as the years go by, it fades, and like, I don't know, was it as bad as I thought it was, or
because other people don't remember, you start to downplay it, and then,
or like, maybe at that moment in my life it was a big deal, but now that I've had all these life experiences since, do I just have a different perspective, or was it really that bad and just time heals all wounds kind of a thing? Like, I don't know.
I mean, Father Steve would say time doesn't heal all wounds. Jesus does.
True. Jesus
Shout out to
Jesus,
Father Steve
being healed. Father Steve, Jesus.
Shout out to Jesus. The real life Harry Potter.
It's interesting though, because I think for me, some things like it's just a perspective as you grow older. Sometimes you have other things happen, and you kind of put it in the place that okay, that wasn't really that bad. Mm-hmm. I read my diary back from middle school. And yikes! I should burn that. I mean, the things that I thought were crazy, but and then I think too, like as we're talking about counselors, like. I know it doesn't work for everyone, but I'm a big believer that if you find the right person, like it can really help to talk things through, because I feel like a lot of time to have like an hour where you're actually like, it sounds selfish, but all about you, and like to really figure out like they catch things, they're not in your life all the time, but they catch things that they're like, why does that particularly bother you? And it drives you crazy, but then you're like, wait, actually why? So I mean, I think we don't always take the time we need to actually, like, after something happens, like, in the immediate aftermath with Ginny, too, I'm sure it was like, okay, I'm back with my family, things are good, or whatever. It probably wasn't right away that she needed some help. It was later. But, I mean, honestly, with Ginny, we don't get a lot of growth, I think, on screen, to be honest, either. Like, there's some there, but sometimes I wish there was a little bit more.
I want a movie based on Ginny's life after the 7th book. Not what married to Harry, but like while she was
care about that.
No, I don't want that part because I don't believe it. But
she would have finished school. Do you mean? Or?
No, like because I don't remember if it's in the book. If it's in the book or if it's just like a fan theory that she went on to be like a professional Quidditch player.
Oh yeah,
I don't think that's in the book.
I want to see that movie where like she goes off to be a professional Quidditch player and like her life. Because I liked Ginny in the books, I just didn't like her in the movies. Like they didn't give her enough.
Maybe like, that's what I'm thinking of it. I need to read. I'll admit to the audience, I need to reread the books. I've probably seen the movies more recently, but. Yeah, she just kind of appears, like she was in the second movie, and I feel like they really they downplay her a lot, and then she comes back in, and you kind of wish you got a little bit more, because obviously he's friends, Harry's friends with Ron, and Ginny's probably been around them a lot, like, especially as she grew older, so just like a little bit more of that would be great, but.
I really do want there to be wizard counselors.
It would make sense.
Where's that book or movie? Let's make that movie.
We could tweet at
J.K. Rowling.
Just say like, because she does these books now just for like to raise money for charities. So that could be for like mental health, right? Write a book about wizard counseling.
Yeah.
And we should get 10% of that.
10% of that would be a lot of money.
Yeah, seriously.
But then we all have to split it up 3 ways, So
it'd still be a lot of money.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, we're really demanding.
But I want to quit my job.
Same. Well.
Already. Day 2, everyone.
I feel like it's always funny, though, too, like, you get into a routine, and I know this is a new routine for you, Reese, but...
it's not routine yet.
And when you get to that point, like Tej and I, that you kind of think about, what could I do? And you, what?
What can I do?
No, I'm saying, but what? Like,
what would you were talking about mental health?
I'm beyond help.
Oh boy!
I went to work, now I need to go to counseling. Shout out to my coworkers.
I was going to say shout out to my counselor. So great.
I feel like my counselor would actually listen to this. Wouldn't put it past her.
Would she like stumble upon it, or would you like, this is what I've been doing?
Oh no, I'd send it to her.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
I'm not shy about the stuff I have on the internet, except for the YouTube videos.
Why?
Because like that's like a weird. It's like I had a purpose in making the YouTube videos. Like I want to learn how to do this stuff, and I want to learn how to speak more. Speak a little bit more coherently to a camera and all this stuff.
So you can thank Reese's YouTube videos for allowing her to speak so coherently.
Yeah. Dirt. Yeah, but then,
are you embarrassed by any of the
I...
ones that you've made now? Like,
no, not embarrassed. It's just like I was definitely on. It's my personality is not like that when the camera's not on. You know,
that's what I always thought was fun about it.
Yeah, it's like a very different thing.
And that's why I thought you'd do good with podcasts.
I did really well with the editing of those videos.
It's very snappy.
mm-hmm.
I think I just burped into the mic.
Sweet.
Yeah, I never had YouTube videos or anything that I can think of. I liked writing stuff. I sound really eloquent now, but...
like rotten stuff.
Did you use a quill?
I was going to say in the olden days I used... I was really angsty with LiveJournal, so...
What's LiveJournal?
Oh my gosh. Did neither of you ever have a LiveJournal?
I'm old. I don't know what that is.
Is that the online journal?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of had to, like, people had to...
It's like a blog?
Follow your friends, like...
Yeah.
So it was kind of, like, it kind of reminded, like, with Facebook.
Do you still have that? Can you get that?
I don't know. I'm not sure I ever deleted it, but I don't know how to get into it. And
That would be, I forgot my password.
Wow.
What was your username on LiveJournal?
I had the same username for everything. My favorite animal and my first name.
I so want it to pop up right now. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, I don't know what else. There might have been something it was under, but, like, I feel like one time I just had, like, a really angsty song lyric, and I was like, oh, maybe my crush will see this, you know? It's like, he's not looking at my LiveJournal? What am I thinking?
But, like, back then, I feel like nobody would actually, like, you were kind of safe having, like, an online thing.
No.
These days, everybody would be looking.
Well,
like, especially in school.
It's actually kind of funny because, so there's a show I watch, or that I used to watch in college, One Tree Hill, and, like, one of the main characters, like, had, like, a video camera that was just always on. And I remember thinking, like, that was weird. Like, she'd just be sitting there, and, you know... And I was like, this is really not good. Like, coming from today's perspective, I'm like, something bad is going to happen. And then, spoiler alert, guys. She had a stalker, and, like, was really surprised by that. And I'm like... she does not deserve it. I'm not saying that at all. But
it's just these days, that's not.
But it's
surprising.
one of those things that I think kids are taught nowadays.
Yeah.
I don't know if kids always understand that, but like that you do need to be really careful because like you think it's all great and putting stuff out there, and people can find a lot of information. I mean, just even stuff people put on Facebook and other things like that's not on private that people can find.
Freaky.
But now when people, I mean, I guess our full names are not attached to it, but if people really could figure out who we are and can find our podcast, that's a great thing, right? We're leaving them with a little treasure. We're making the internet world brighter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like people can find me pretty easily.
Yeah.
Does that scare you?
No. I mean, like, we have our first names associated with the podcast. But I've also talked about my YouTube videos. So I feel like, I mean, I'm really good at finding things using little bits of information.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, I mean, somebody out there is good at finding things. I'm not sure they could find specifically, you know, all of my stuff, but if I, like, my internet persona uses the name Reese.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So my in-laws will always call on me to be the Facebook creeper. Mm-hmm. Like, they know I can find stuff. Mm. And so whenever we need to kind of, like, look up stuff, and this might be embarrassing to admit, but they have a rental home, and so they asked me to creep on potential renters to make sure.
That makes sense.
Like, yeah. And it makes sense, but it's like the amount of stuff that I can find out from people, like, again, who don't have private Facebooks. Like, I know, like, really weird things about their life, and it feels weird. Like, I'm like, this is very personal, and I don't know why you share that so publicly. But, again, everyone has their own their own things. So be who you are. But
well, it's pretty surprising, especially in this day and age where everybody can find things, that you're just putting crap out there, and then I guess now it seems like it's pretty common practice if you're getting a job, the potential employer is like looking at
which is
your
another
stuff.
good reason for me to use the name Reese.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Because I never put anything like scandalous out there, but I may have used a swear word here and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, things happen. Well, and like you say, part of it, you have a persona in the videos that is, it's a part of you, but not how you define you, or I don't know how. I wouldn't know
it's
how
not
to
your like
articulate.
day to day.
Yeah, so I feel like that's the other hard part too. Is like, I mean, if people are really trying to play a role, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like it gets mixed up, especially if like people don't understand that. That can be really hard for like, okay, if you're an employer looking at somebody's stuff, well, if their profile is their name, but they're, it's almost like being an actor, or like some of these musicians where they like act like a jerk just because that's their persona, but they're really not and stuff.
My question here is, what kind of online personas would like Harry, Ron, and Hermione have? Do you think anyone like would be active in
Ron
on
would just
YouTube
like take
or
pictures of like him doing a keg stand or something.
And he would have just like selfies of him and Scabbers. And then he would post a picture of his broken wand and say, "My parents refused to get me a new one." Harry wouldn't have one because he wouldn't have internet access with the Weasleys. And by Weasleys, I mean Dursleys.
Yeah. If he ever tried to get one, he would get so much like activity that he would just like shut it down.
Yeah,
be too much.
He's too popular.
Yeah.
Or for a while, like when he wasn't as popular in certain times in the books, like 5th book, he'd be too angsty.
Or if he did have it, he'd have like a secret one, and it'd be like SCARBOY.
Oh my gosh, he would have a life.
Yeah.
Yes. He would have a LiveJournal. I'm just saying.
He would.
And I think Hermione would just...
Did you say SCARBOY?
SCARBOY7.
Hermione would be one of those people that has a Twitter, but all it ever does is tweet like, "I ran 5 miles today." Or like...
and she'd retweet like...
It's the library.
Her other Twitter account, which would be Spew.
Yeah.
And it would be all like political activism and...
It would be like, "I just rated another title on Goodreads." Or, like one of those accounts, all it does is like update whatever it's linked to.
Yeah.
Yeah. She wouldn't actually
And then it'd be
anything.
retweeting Spew.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sign the petition.
Sign the petition to save the house elves.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Spew just goes dormant. Alright, so there's another episode of Thunderwudgies. Send us an email at thunderwudgies@gmail.com. Right? That's
correct.
That's the plural one. Mm-hmm. And tweet us at Thunderwudgie.
Singular. Just one Wudgie, like we said.
Yep. You can only stand one Wudgie at a time.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Send us questions. We'd love to hear from you. If you disagree with any of these things, if you have any thoughts.
Don't email us. If you're encouraging, email us.
We definitely, though.
You can tweet us if you're going to be mean. Email us if you have questions and comments, concerns, stories.
We definitely want to hear from Reese's dad.
We'll be waiting on that. Yep. It's late. All right. This has been Reese.
I'm Teach.
And Annie. It's Thunderwudgie!
See you next time. Thunderwudgie is hosted by Reese, Annie, and Teej. We're at Thunderwudgie on Twitter, and you can send us an email via thunderwudgies@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.